Veritas Acquitus by Bonesboy 15, Chapter 25, Aftermath. General Ironwood would be in charge of the defenses for the Vital Festival. A shadowed member of the Council of Vale decreed to the three men within the Beacon Headmaster's office. The cleanup performed by Ironwood's mechanized forces was fast and efficient, which allowed for many of the students sent out to help defend the city to be recalled to recover. General Ironwood stood straight. I will do my best, we know. Andrea, do stop sticking your nose in places it doesn't belong. I'll think about it, Jiraiya said from where he leaned against the wall. The smirk that was on his face fell when the holographic screens disappeared. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong. Typical councils. At least the Vacuum Council is willing to show their face to someone when they completely undermine their authority to another nation. I wish it didn't have to be that way, but I warned you, Ospen. James. Ospen cut the general off with a tired stare. He turned to Jiraiya. Jiraiya, please, if the both of you would, give me a moment. Fair enough. Ironwood nodded and turned to leave. Jiraiya remained silent as he followed the general out. The door shut behind them with a soft click, and the lights in the room brightened slightly. Ospen sat down into his chair and used one hand to conceal his face. Ironwood was right. He'd been warned. That was a really stupid move on your part, Ospen, a familiar voice said from a small shadow in the corner of the room. Yes, I'm aware. Thank you. Ospen sighed and looked up from his hand to glare lightly at the man before him. Why are you here? What? Last time you welcomed me with open arms. Speaking of which, the shadow figure folded his arms over his chest. Why are those brats still in your school? In case you haven't noticed, there's bigger issues to worry about, Ospen dryly retorted. This is nothing compared to what's coming, the mysterious figure said with a wave of his hand. Ospen glared at him once more. If you'd tell me. Come now, Ospen. You know I can't, the figure scoffed. It'd be a breach of the order's decree. The hell with the order. Ospen shot from his seat. If you can't tell me what is coming, then the least you could do is have the courtesy to tell me why you've come to kick me while I'm down. Because, almighty Ospen, the man said, unfazed by the outburst. A small smirk spread across his face. If I don't do this, then who will? After all, a wall can only become stronger each time it's rebuilt. Get out of my office, Ospen bit out, his hand tightly gripping his cane as he glared at the visitor. You'll understand one day, Ospen, the guest chuckled as he disappeared into the shadows. About halfway down the main floor, Jiraiya hit the emergency stop switch on the elevator. The casket stopped halfway between floors, and the lights dimmed slightly. His fellow elevator rider closed his eyes and let out a sigh. Lord Jiraiya, you know as well as I do that had I not acted, two fingers pressed around the general's larynx, silencing him instantly as air was cut from his lungs. Your job, right now, Jimmy, is to listen. So shut up, stand at attention, and if you so much as blink without my say-so, Atlas will be down a general and headmaster, capiche? Jiraiya asked slowly as he towered over Ironwood, unable to breathe or speak out against the action. All Ironwood could do was nod his cooperation. Good. Jiraiya removed his fingers from the general's neck, which made the man gasp and rub his throat. Ignoring the dirty look sent his way by the general, Jiraiya glared down at him. Now listen, and listen good. I don't care about you undermining Ospen like a douchebag, because let's face it, you're from Mantle. That's how most of you are. Ironwood did nothing more than narrow his eyes further, which allowed Jiraiya to continue uninterrupted. I don't even care about you coming in and swinging your dick around like you own the joint. What I do care about, and listen closely, Jimmy, because this is important, what I do care about is my godson's safety. If you show of force or any top secret Elysian weapon stolen by the White Fang or Fourth War causes damage that threatens him in any way, Jiraiya's eyes and tears turned gold and the air in the room became heavy. The general visibly strained to remain upright and had to work on keeping his breathing even. Jiraiya lifted a hand, a finger extended, and Ironwood grimaced when it poked him in the chest. I will, and follow me on this, personally, maliciously, and slowly destroy your precious Atlas from the inside out. Are we clear on that, General? Crystal, sir. Ironwood grit out, loathing the stutter that left his mouth. The weight and tension in the air vanished as so fast it was like a switch was flipped. Jiraiya's eyes and tears returned to their normal colors and a smile spread across his face. I'm glad to hear that we understand one another, Jiraiya said boisterously. He clapped Ironwood on the shoulder and turned the elevator back on. The elder man wiped his notepad out and began to scribble notes in it, whistling a jaunty tune while he did. Ironwood fixed his suit and stepped out once the elevator came to a stop, his pace a bit faster than normal. If one were to look closely, they'd see a bead of sweat on the side of his head. The good general knew that Jiraiya meant every word he'd said. This is the man who was reported to have threatened to kill one of his old teammates in a public restaurant if they threatened to betray Vacuo back during the skirmish with Vale. He demonstrated his severity by killing what was supposedly a well-placed mole by Vale's then head councilman, who'd long since been replaced. The poor waiter was barely out of his teens, and according to the autopsy, the remains were very hard to remove from the wood. And so it was with a bunch of concealed but very much shaken nerves that General James Ironwood returned to his school/military main airship to update some personal files. Once he was back within his quarters and seated at his private computer, he edited a dossier that he created as soon as he got to Beacon. Team name, Nox, affiliation, unknown, Vacuo/Vale, members, Naruto Uzumaki, leader/frontline, Hakuyuki, support/espionage, Kuruma Otsutsuki, support/intelligence, Uchiha Sasuke, support/mid-long range, notes, Uzumaki, son of Thunder God Minato Namikaze and Bloody Death Kushina Uzumaki, godson to Toad Sage Jiraiya, semblance, capable of enhancing physical abilities to unknown levels, primary weapon, gauntlets, unknown origin, threat level, alpha, Yuki, parentage unknown, raised and trained by the demon butcher Momochi Zabuza, known assassin, semblance, presumably interdimensional transportation, primary weapon, scrapped 2 and DRX, Needler prototype of Mistral, presumed stolen by Momochi, threat level alpha, Otsutsuki, ninth son of monk staff Hagoromo Otsutsuki, Faunus, semblance unknown, weapon, multiform staff, threat level, alpha, Uchiha, son of Uchiha Fugaku and Mikoto, brother, younger of Uchiha Itachi, wanted terrorist/murderer in all 4 kingdoms, semblance, creation/manipulation of electricity/lightning, extent unknown, weapon, sword/compact bow, threat level, alpha, orders, avoid confrontation/conflict at all cost, retreat on conflict, indisputable. Ironwood leaned back and looked over his work carefully. Some of this information would be provided to the team that faced off against Nox, primarily their backgrounds. As little as there were, Otsutsuki's status as a Faunus would be enough for some students, and it was all they had right now. The Uchiha's family's tree was well known across Remnant, with the boy's older brother becoming a new boogeyman for a younger generation, and Yuki's history with the demon butcher of Vacuo would be more than enough to make his students and soldiers wary, but it was the team leader's lineage he'd have to redact and conceal, file away within the privacy of his personal notes. Ironwood bit on the tip of his thumb. He couldn't risk anyone learning anything about arguably the most dangerous member of the team, lest he give Jiraiya a reason to start a new internal war. With the heavy sigh, James Ironwood entered the proper codes to classify and redact information highlighted. The needs of the many, he thought bitterly. Oh well, it wasn't like any of his students held a grudge against Minato Kushina. Perhaps you should perform a quick background check, just to be sure. So, you going to say anything in your defense? Jiraiya asked. After he scared the Legion General shitless, Jiraiya made a detour over to the detention center where Roman Torchwick was being held. The criminal was seated on the other side of a bolted-down table, his arms and legs bound with aura-concealing cuffs. He looked a bit roughed up, but otherwise fine. Nah, what's the point? I'm guilty of everything, Roman said, a smirk on his face. Kidnapping, conspiracy, theft, and... this one's my favorite, war crimes. What's the point in trying to get out of it? Everyone is innocent until proven guilty, Torchwick, Jiraiya pointed out. The criminal barked out a laugh. Who are you, my lawyer? Come on, buddy. This isn't my first time in the interrogation room. Bring in the bad cop already, Roman said. An open pack of cigarettes was slid over to him, and he arched a brow. Oh, bribery's fun. How kind. You want to light one up now, or would you rather save them for when you drop the soap? Jiraiya asked. Torchwick rolled his eyes and with fumbling fingers pulled the stick out and put it in his mouth. Jiraiya twitched his hand, revealing a pack of matches, and snapped one off. The match was quickly ignited and used to light the cigarette that hung from the criminal's lips. Torchwick took a long drag and bent his head down so he could use one hand to remove the smoke from his mouth. Cheap, but it's better than nicotine withdrawal, he muttered. The smoke was placed back into his mouth, and another drag was taken before he looked at the stony-faced old man seated across from him. So what do you want to know? Well, the secret to eternal youth would be nice. Don't we all want that? Roman chuckled. Come on, don't jerk me around. What do you want? A confession? A deal? My life? In a hurry? Jiraiya asked. Let's just say as soon as this little convoy is over, I'm getting a ride over to Atlas to receive the finest of my peers to try me, Roman said with a snort. I've got a lifetime of cold nights and stone walls to mentally prepare for, so if you'd be so kind. Fair enough. Jiraiya leaned forward and steeped his fingers. I know for a fact that you've been in contact with the real brains behind the breach. Oh, really? You know this for a fact? Roman asked with his smirk plastered on his face. According to the general, I'm the one behind it all. He's got me. Crime has to stop. Crime will stop. In Bell. For a while. Jiraiya agreed. He smirked. But just because it's called crime doesn't mean it's all bad. Some of the worst things done on Remnant were done with the best intentions in mind. Oh, and this is the offer, huh? All right, I'll humor you. Roman chuckled. He took a drag of his cigarette. Hypothetically, let's say there was another smarter person scheming in the background and that I was just a front man. If hypothetically I was to reveal who that person was, I'd still have to concern myself with the backlash from them. They've got both the White Fang and the Fourth War back in them. So, weighing my options, I could either risk going up against both groups for the chance to go on some vacuum approved stress of the crime sort, or I could spend the rest of my life in a secure Atletian prison where I would be fed 3 meals a day, get my bedding laundered, and have a chance to parole a decade or so later. Roman held his hands out with like a scale and bounced them from side to side before he laughed. Take your offer and shove it, Grandpa. What do you take me for? An idiot? Yep. Jiraiya chirped as he stood up and went to the door. He stopped his hand hovering back over the door control. Oh, and for the record, I just wanted to confirm my source identity of this mastermind. Shame you couldn't do that and choose to go to prison. Enjoy your trip, Mr. Torchwick. Yep, Roman slumped forward suddenly. He was foaming at the mouth and his eyes rolled into his head while his body began to convulse. Jiraiya paid this no mind and stepped out of the interrogation room, giving a brief nod to the officers that stood outside the door. I'll get him to a medic if I were you. That's not normal. Roman Torchwick is missing. Thank you, Ruby, for screaming out what I just said, Kurma said dryly to the youngest member of their little group from where he sat in his recliner reading the morning news on his scroll. With the breach aftermath being taken care of by the teachers and their respective guardians, Team Ruby, Juniper, and Nox had gathered together in the recreation room of their dorm building to relax after a long few days. Yang and Naruto occupied the love seat on the right, comfortably seated together, or rather, Yang lying atop Naruto while they watched Sasuke, John, Ruby, and Noram, all seated on the floor, play one of the many fighting games Ruby had brought with her. Reading novels were Weiss and Blake, who sat on the couch and the former's legs were used by Ruby as a pillow. Pyrrha took the other seat beside Blake, reading an X-Ray and VAF comic she snagged from John, while Haku and Ren sat on the other couch, watching the gamers and awaiting their turn. Kurma wiggled a finger in his ear. Damn, why does every girl have to know her? Why does every girl I have to know have a set of lungs? Velvet does, Haku pointed out. That we know of. Tinlian says his velvet cake is a screamer, Sasuke said. He ducked under a tossed cushion, a smirk on his face. I'll take that bet, Naruto offered. 20 says she's silent and squirty. The blonde got a whack upside the head from Yang, who was still a tad miffed by the events that occurred towards the end of his team's mission with the cashier, as well as his willingness to be swallowed whole not once, but twice by monster worms. She made sure Naruto had scrubbed his teeth and showered before giving him any kisses. Monster gunk residue was not something she wanted to risk tasting, ever. Thank you, Kurma said with a nod to Yang, who nodded back before she gave Naruto a look. The only girl you should be wondering those sorts of things about is me, Whisker Boy, Yang muttered while she readjusted herself from where she lay to get a better view of the game. Believe me, I do, Naruto whispered heatedly into his girlfriend's ear. She grinned and they shared a quick peck which made most of the group roll their eyes. Gross! Ruby stuck her tongue out in disgust and then squawked in outrage when she was killed by Nora's character's hammer. Ah, darn! Mwahaha! The pancake addict cackled gleefully. And then there was three. Not this time, Nora, John decreed valiantly. His thumb blurred on the controller and he narrowed his eyes in concentration. He grinned wildly when his actions resulted in a special move being displayed, a move that took Nora's character out in a violent and gory mess. Aha! Victory! No! Pancake Queen! Nora wailed. She glared at John. You murdered her. Now how shall she now how will she reclaim her castle? All her people will starve at the hands of the Waffle King. Damn right, Sasuke smirked. He took John out with a basic move that wiped the smile off his face. Nobody touches the waffles. Oh, come on. That's a crock of... Oi, PJ, keep it PG, will ya? Kurama cut off the teen with a smirk on his face. John glared at him. Like you're one to talk, John grumbled. Shut up, PJ. Oh, goddammit, Kurama swore. What now, hypocrite? Haku asked, and John accused him. My griff ball team got destroyed. Your what? Haku asked again, his brow raised in confusion. Pyrrha looked up from her comic, also a bit confused. Griffball, you know, the sport. Guys run a ball made of leather across a field wearing bright ass colors. Made by a huntsman who flunked out of Shade Academy, Kurama explained dryly. He clucked his tongue and his eyebrows knit together in annoyance as his attention returned to his scroll. My team got utterly wrecked in their last game. And you care because I had a bet with Yatsuhashi on that game, Kurama grumbled. He blinked in surprise when his scroll leaped. What's the toad want with me? Naruto, Sasuke's and Haku's scroll beeped soon after. The all-male team opened their message and collectively released heavy sighs, or in the team leader's case, a deep groan. Come on, man. This is so freaking unfair, Naruto said with a childish whine. He was still tired from the breach and the Graboid hunt, not to mention his lack of sleep caused by the very intrusive and unwelcome drunk that was his godfather. Bastard continued to moan out different names of different girls, giggle for about a minute straight, and then snore so loudly. Naruto was sure that the walls began to cave in on his inhales and expand out on the exhales. Compared to his usual energetic self, Naruto was exhausted. He was having a fantastic time just lying on the love seat with his arms lazily wrapped around Yang, who made for an excellent body pillow. Or you could ignore it. John trailed off when a shiver went down his spine. He looked around, alarmed by the sudden sensation. What was that? Probably an aura of death, Sasuke said dryly. He sighed and dropped his controller before he rose up from his seat on the ground. Might as well go see what he wants. If it's a spar, maybe we can talk him out of it. Yeah, and then Barba Tusk will learn to fly, Naruto said with an amused snort. He sluggishly tore himself away from the comfortable cushion and love seat he laid on, a look of begrudging acceptance crossing his face in the form of a mild frown. Yang didn't seemed too pleased by his forced vacancy either, if the small frown on her face was anything to go by. She rolled onto her side and drummed her fingers on the cushion as she watched the 14's leave. What's wrong, Yang? Cold without your heated cushion to lay on? Weiss asked with a small smirk. At least I have a heated cushion to lay on. Yang 1, Weiss 0. Blake muttered and turned the page in her book. Who asked you? Weiss scowled at the catty girl while Yang smirked and held up a victory sign. Oh, good, you showed up. Now I don't have to hunt you all down. Jiraiya grinned wildly at the four boys that approached him. He stood up from his seated position, putting his back to the cliff overlooking the emerald forest, and clapped his hands together. So, good news and bad news. Already I dread this, Naruto mumbled. Shut it, brat. Jiraiya mildly glared at his godson before he grinned again. The good news is the Council of El has decided not to sue you for the damages caused by the beast bomb. They were going to sue us? Naruto asked, his eyes wide and his features along with his team's pale. I didn't know they could do that. This isn't Bakugo, Naruto, Jiraiya said informantly. Vel has its appearance and pride, and unlike Bakugo, people come here to sightsee more than they do for work. Plus, any damages caused by the huntsmen and huntresses hired should either be covered by the hirer or they risk losing their cut of pay to cover for it. Remember that. You don't want to learn it the hard way like I did. Well, keep that in mind, Kurama said slowly, still coming to terms with nearly being sued for saving lives. I hope so, Jiraiya said. He waited a moment to let the boys get over the small shock before continuing. The bad news is they want to ensure it won't happen again. So, since Team Cage is out patrolling the walls and repairing damages, you boys get to spend some quality time with me in training. But you only train him? Sasuke muttered weakly, pointing a finger at his team leader, who looked ready to bolt at a moment's notice. Shut up, Sasuke! Naruto snapped before he looked back at his godfather. If this is supposed to be bad news, why do you look so happy? I'm glad you asked, Jiraiya asked. He pulled out 3 small silver bells, and 3 of the 4 boys paled even further. We're going back to a classic. Oh, they're all in heaven, surrounded by holy noodles. Oh, you have... Ugh. I'll be generous, Jiraiya said, ignoring his godson, and held up 4 fingers. 4 hours to get 1 bell from me. If you do get all 3, we get to stop training, but if you don't, we'll just have to start from the beginning. Well, your rules are simple. Come at me with intent to kill, and I'll go easy on you. Why do I feel like we just signed our own death warrants by showing up? Haku asked. Because we did. Naruto whimpered. He gave up a cuddling and slash napping time he gave up cuddling slash napping time for this. He really was an idiot. Training begins now. What? Haku asked. A gust of wind brushed past by him, and Haku turned to see his teammates had vanished, a few leaves falling from where they had stood. He started to form a mirror behind him, but before he could finish, he doubled over a fist that buried itself in his stomach. Pain, unlike any other, racked through Haku's body, and the corners of his vision went black. You weren't ready. The androgynous boy fell to the ground unconscious, and Jiraiya looked down at him. That's the student of the demon butcher? I feel very disappointed, he said, frowning. He shrugged and gently moved the boy onto his back off to the side. Once that was done, Jiraiya looked around and grinned. Well, 1 down, 3 to go. 4 hours later, and Jiraiya hadn't moved from his spot much, and looked down at the boys with a smirk on his face. I have good news. Boys, you're not total shit. Jiraiya evaluated the 4. He was given 4 pain groans in response. The sage shook his head. Oh, don't be sour losers. Piss off, Toad. Kurama groaned. He tried to use Rikudo to get back to his feet, but his knees gave out and he fell flat onto his face. Ow. Jiraiya glanced over at the only fondness of the team. He managed to snag a bell once, but lost it when forced to defend himself from Jiraiya's onslaught of retaliation. The elderly huntsman easily put him in what was the B rank of Khan's 6 classification system, SCS. B was easily third highest rank one could be placed at, and considering that Jiraiya himself was S rank, it said a lot about Kurama's skill. Mom, I don't want to go to school today, Sasuke groaned, his vision spinning. Jiraiya chuckled and ranked Sasuke at B as well. He was talented, of that there was no doubt, but his semblance was rather easy to anticipate and react to if he missed his first few initial strikes, or if he knew the boy was as long as you did and were fast enough. I think I forgot how to math. Haku, who had awoken at the 2-hour mark and joined back in the fight, mumbled. Now Jiraiya ranked at A. Yes, Jiraiya did catch him off guard, but even Jiraiya could be caught off guard sometimes, usually while in the sack or while drunk. But those were rare events, and of themselves, his semblance was easily the most versatile of the 3, and the least predictable. His weapon was the same. Haku was the biggest problem that his team's enemies would have to worry about, and Jiraiya's first strike was definitely in his favor. Hey, I won. You owe me ramen for life. Jiraiya laughed once more when he heard his godson's dozed groan. After Haku was taken out, he targeted the sleep-deprived huntsman in training and shoved him about. He showed him absolutely no mercy. It was to see how far Naruto could push himself when at his limits, and unsurprisingly, Naruto would go pretty damn far. He managed to pose a semblance to the 8th degree before he succumbed to his exhaustion and passed out mid-punch. Jiraiya just left him where he fell, feeling only the slightest amount of guilt for purposely keeping him awake the night before and ranking him somewhere between B and A rank, leaning more towards the latter because of his sheer tenacity in battle. I have to say, I'm very surprised by your progress, and I'm glad that none of you three let your skills deteriorate too bad while you've been living it up in this fancy schmancy school, Giras said. He tossed the three bells in his hands and grinned as he caught them on the descent. That said, we train again tomorrow, same time, same place, so rest up, kiddies. A chorus of pitiful groans was their response to him. Giras smiled inside. Ah, music to his ears. Wow, you look like shit. Kerma glared dully at the smirking faunus that sat down across from him. Once he regained a feeling in his legs and sought some sort of medical help, Kerma received another message. This one requested he meet with the sender in a restaurant in Bell, and Kerma mustered up the nerve to do just that. However, after sitting down and waiting for 20 minutes, he started to get testy. Hello to you too, Gyuki. Have you ordered yet, Gyuki? Asked curiously as he opened the menu. No, Kerma spat out. I was waiting for you, being courteous. Well, excuse me, in case you don't realize it, a shit ton of Grim just broke into Vale. The case behind it is missing. Oh, and to top it all off, my idiot little brother used the one thing Dad forbade him to use within city walls, Yuki said while he set his menu down. He lowered his sunglasses a tad on the bridge of his nose and pure white eyes glared at the younger faunus. Care to explain that last bit? I don't have to explain anything to you, Kerma spat. He hesitated for a moment before he pushed his sunglasses up firmly over his eyes. There was a fucking swarm around us. I thinned the herd, and in the process destroyed an entire block. Sacrifices have to be made to do what's right, Yuki. Kerma sneered. Weren't those your words to Dad before you vanished? Things changed, Kerma. Whatever. What do you want? You're the one that wanted to talk after we met. What was it, a month ago now? Yuki asked. That's not my fault, Kerma said with a scowl. I'm sure it wasn't. It's not ever your fault, Kerma. Yuki smirked and fixed his sunglasses back over his unique eyes. You're the Pisky's widow kitten. After all, fuck you, Ink Boy. Don't you know you're not supposed to be swearing? Should I ring Matatabi up? Kerma growled and his tail flicked irritably. Yuki laughed and sat back in his seat. Ah, come on, Kerma, lighten up. Listen, I didn't want you to come here to fight. He said. He smiled genuinely. I want to know how things have been after Dad died. I've been trying to find everyone. Well, good luck with that. 2 of them went and got themselves killed for the cause. Kerma said bitterly, a scowl on his face. I know, Yuki said. Yuki quietly mumbled. There was quiet for a moment. Kerma, I know it was hard. You don't know anything, Kerma snarled. He grabbed Rikudo and used it to help himself back to his feet out of the stall. This was a mistake. Go back to work, Yuki. It's obviously all you care about. Kerma. Yuki called after him as the faunus turned and left. The bullhorn of faunus dropped his head into his hand and groaned. Great, Yuki. Just great. You fucked it up again. Shouldn't have left him wait. Damn it, I shouldn't have known better. Be safe. The woman with long dark hair mumbled as she watched Yang Xiaolong walk back towards Beacon, the teenage girl's mind reeling from their conversation. Her eyes closed and a giant red portal opened behind her. Then, on a whim, the portal closed. Her eyes opened and stared at Yang's disappearing back. You can't hide from the one who taught you, Itachi. You have merely waited for me to leave. We cannot be seen together, you know this. The member of the Fourth War stepped from the shadows into the moonlight. He narrowed his eyes. You have no right to tell her those things, Raven. Perhaps not, but it was for the best she knew that among the rest. The woman, Raven mused. She gripped the handle of her blade tightly and turned to face the young man. Why have you come here? You know why. Itachi allowed his hooked sword to slowly descend from his sleeve. Now, will you follow me? Or will I have to take drastic measures? Have you truly no heart, Itachi? Raven sighed and released her sword hilt. She couldn't risk it, not now. Itachi kept his weapon out and narrowed his eyes as they darkened in color. Raven's eyes became the exact copies of his for a brief moment before they fell shut and she slumped forward. Itachi caught her before she fell and he pulled her over his shoulder. He slid his sword back into his sleeve and he turned his back on Beacon. Under his breath, he uttered an answer to the woman's question as he disappeared into the shadows. My heart was broken a long time ago. End of chapter 25.